To another video with On Point Politics. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. Looking at the Senate map for 2026, my first official look. This is just guessing based on my own intuition, no polling data. Well, we actually have polling data to show. However, I do have a separate intuition for the midterms and how they're going to go based on my modeling and my intuition about the national environment and whatnot. And so looking at the map, right, you have, this is the 2020 map, and Republicans are going in with 53 Senate seats to 47, and you had about, a couple swing state ones. You had, Kelly's election, the Arizona special election. That was sort of a swing election. Ossoff's win, 1.2% in the runoff. That was a swing election. So was Warnock's. Peters was also, just barely hanging on, even though Biden did pretty well in the state. And last time this guy ran, he did respectable. It was a safe margin of over 12 points. And so the fact that it was this much of a win, and then you see a couple years later, it's already down to 2 points. The seat isn't exactly trending well for Democrats, and with people like Pete Buttigieg possibly throwing their hat in the ring, the fact the incumbent is not even in the race anymore, that's not really a great sign for Democrats, and neither is Shannon. She's also not in the race anymore. She has now retired from her Senate seat. And so, yes, these are good things for Republicans. However, the national environment that awaits Republicans in 2026, I'm not exactly sure if it's going to be what people are expecting. Everybody says, Donald Trump's favorables at 50%. The Democrats are at 30%. Oh my God. The Republicans are guaranteed to flip the House in 26, or they're going to hold the Senate, which I do think they're going to hold the Senate. The Senate math looks not great for them, for Democrats. And the House isn't necessarily guaranteed either. But people are expecting a red wave in 2026 because of the Democrats are in disarray and this and that and whatnot. I don't want to fool you guys. It is not a guarantee that a red or blue wave will happen. But I'm telling you right now, the midterms will look a little bit more like 2022 than they will look like 2010. That's what I'm saying. And I actually think, if anything, the Democrats are the favorites to end up winning the congressional generic ballot, just because of the fact alone that the electorate is becoming more educated. The Democrats are now agitated. They are now the outside party. They are no longer the incumbents. Their bases are more energized. And yes, they are disapproved of nationwide quite a bit. But I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that some of them are disappointed in their leadership, and not exactly that. There's all these people that are going to be backing Republicans because the Democrats have a 30% favorable. Republicans in those same polls are only like a couple points ahead. And it's still far out. The president in the first couple months tends to have this very big period where they're up against their, previous opponent by like 15 points, so they're way more popular than the opposition party. Like Biden in 2021 would have probably beaten Trump in many red states, so as Trump would probably beat Kamala in many blue states, right now if the election was held today. And so, but going forward into 2026, I think that it's not very smart to expect a red wave. And in fact, you may have some incumbents, barring, registration voter trends, which may bode in favor of them. You may have some candidates who may not perform exactly too well. Idaho is going to be in that safe column. Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska will be in the safe column unless an independent runs. Last time in 2020, this seat was pretty locked up. I really don't expect the seat to move much whatsoever. Oklahoma is in that safe column. Even Kansas, to an extent, is above 12 points, so that is going to be safe. Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. You even see that Kansas seat's actually going to be, it's looking to be redder this time than it was before. So that is interesting. You're looking at Alabama as safe, Tennessee, Kentucky is safe, West Virginia is in the safe column, and even South Carolina is not in the safe column, nor Mississippi, nor Alaska. So that's why I haven't filled those in as safe, because they're not even safe states. Neither is Montana, by the way, on this Senate map. And when you look at the Senate map for 2024 and you compare it to the actual results, you see that Republicans underperformed across the board, just very badly performed across the board. It was not great whatsoever. I mean, Curtis outperformed Donald Trump. Like, yes, there's a couple of places where the Senate candidates outperformed, but like, look at Fisher, and a 7-point win, all because they ran an independent candidate. Tennessee, I believe, is a little bit in lockstep with the presidential result. Same thing in Mississippi. I think Wicker did a little bit better. Scott underperformed Trump just narrowly. But like, look at Texas. Cruz did significantly worse than Donald Trump did on the top of the ballot. I think he almost performed like 7 points, 6 points worse than President Trump on the same ballot. And even like, Kane won by 9. You see New Jersey was like a 10-point victory for the Democrat there. Sanders won by 31. So it's like the Democrats across the board were outperforming in some of these states. Even Ohio, only like a 3.5-point win with an incumbent senator there. The Republican didn't even win by much. Same thing with Sheehy here. They beat the incumbent Tester by like a couple points. And a lot of that was because Donald Trump was on the ballot and was able to carry some of these over. But like, look at Michigan and Wisconsin. Even with Donald Trump on the ballot, they still couldn't even win Nevada, Wisconsin, or Michigan. And Arizona was a 2-point win for Gallego, 2.5, as opposed to the 5.5-point win that Trump got, because the Hispanics in Arizona are very elastic. And if you're not getting that vote, I mean, it's just not going to work out for you. If you look at the crosstabs here, I mean, Gallego won Hispanics by like literally almost 20 points, and Lake only won whites by 4. When you look at Donald Trump's performance in the state, this is what you're going to notice very quickly. It's going to jump out at you very, very fast. But you're going to see, when you look at the racial demographics of this breakdown, the Hispanic vote is like within 10 points in Arizona. And he did much better with whites, but he also performed a lot better with Hispanics and got a quarter of the black vote in Arizona. Like, did very well with that group. Extremely well. And he won Latino men. He literally won Latino men in Arizona. And so it's like, that's kind of the problem. And you even see it in Texas. Like, you look at Texas, I mean, Donald Trump even won women in the state of Texas. I mean, this was a masterclass performance. He even won 18 to 29-year-olds in the state of Texas. The only group that didn't go to him was black voters, and he still won a quarter of them. And he won Hispanics by 1 point in the state of Texas. He literally won Hispanics in the state of Texas. He came within 3 points of winning Latino women in Texas. But when you look at like Ted Cruz and his Senate performance, you're going to see something completely different. When you look at the racial demographics, Allred is winning by like basically 7 points with Hispanics. And Cruz does respectable with black voters, but does a little bit worse with Hispanics. And you even see it here, like in the breakdowns. Hispanic men are tied, and the women are significantly more Democrat. So Hispanics are a lot more elastic on the electoral map than other racial groups. And when you look at the model for Cornyn, in a D+3, generic ballot, he's only winning Texas by like 3 points. He's not doing well, and he's not really loved by the Trump base. The voters that elected Trump, he is not necessarily that liked with those voters. I actually think that race could end up being fairly close. Now, Florida, on the other hand, is completely in the safe column. I mean, this state on the model is like a 13.4 percentage point win. And again, voter registration data can come in and boost the margin in Texas. I expect Cornyn to win by like maybe 5 or 6. I don't think it's going to be 2.5. I think that voter registration trends, and maybe if Republicans are doing a little bit better in the national popular vote, you could see Texas potentially look a little bit different. But as of right now, I actually think it's more of a swing race than some of these other Senate seats. As of right now, Montana, Alaska, Mississippi, and South Carolina are all likely. Montana at 11 points, Mississippi only at 9 points. And Mississippi is one of those states in like 20 years that will end up being like a swing state, because you do have a lot of college transplants there. The state is typically tired of the Republican governor there, Tate Reeves, very unpopular governor in the state. So there's just a combination of factors there that are making Mississippi a target to become a swing state. In the near future, you even see, Alaska is a little bit closer, but it still ends up going in the Republican column. Same thing for South Carolina. Ohio is still in the likely column, but is only a 7-point win, and this is J.D. Vance's old seat. And so it depends on who runs here. I definitely think Vivek is going to drag down the ballot in Ohio. We look at Iowa. That one's an easy win of like 16 points. I mean, that one's just like very, very solid of victory of like 16 in the state. But Ernst is getting pretty lucky there. If the polling looks like iffy for her, it'll definitely drop below 12. But I think because of the fact the state of Iowa has gotten so close and has been trending red, I think she'll probably hold on by over 12, but it's definitely possible it does drop below 12 points. Colorado is like nearing 15 points on this map. Same thing with Oregon, like 17 points. So those are off the table whatsoever. Illinois, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Delaware. Those are all gone. Those are not really on the table whatsoever either. New Jersey is like about 11 points. But again, if voter registration trends kick in, as time goes on, and the national popular vote's a little bit more, on the left-leaning side, or the right-leaning side, this Senate seat could potentially become competitive. It just really depends on how the national environment is shaping up to be. Virginia is like closer to 13 points on this map, so that one's completely off the table in my opinion. Minnesota is looking like a 7-point win on the map there, so that one's like about 7 points as of right now. And even New Hampshire, even with this new poll that came out with Sununu leading Pappas by like basically 9 points on the generic ballot here, which is really, really surprising. And maybe the voter registration trends in New Hampshire will reflect this. Still not really a great look in the state of New Hampshire, in my opinion. I think that the coalition will definitely be different than the 2024 election. I think there's going to be a lot more transplants by then. I feel like a lot of people, when the race comes in, Pappas is going to get a lot of money thrown into the race, and I think it's going to end up being, I don't think it'll be likely with Sununu. I definitely think it'll be a toss-up, but I actually still think the Democrat would probably end up winning the race, but only time will tell if this model will end up being correct. And then we have the swing states on the map besides Texas. New Mexico, it's closer to 6, but it's not exactly above 6 points. So it is in the lean column. 2 to 6 is now my lean margin. So because of that, it is lean, and it does show that New Mexico is trending Republican, and the Democrat here isn't particularly a strong nominee either. So that's definitely a factor. And you look at Georgia, I mean, yeah, Kemp is up by 4 in early polling. I mean, yeah, it's very, you can go to the polling here, and you can see that Kemp is up, in this. I mean, it's just very, clear that Kemp is up in this poll, but Kemp is at 48% to Ossoff's 44%. There's still a lot of undecided voters, and the Senate is different than a governorship race. That's what people need to understand. Sununu running for Senate is completely different than running for governor. Same thing for Kemp running for the Senate in Georgia. They are not auto flips if they run. They're not. They're not auto flips. They're just not, guys. They're really not auto flips in this election cycle. And we look at, and the reason why they're not auto flips is because running for Senate is completely different than running for governor. Governorships are way less polarized than Senate and presidential elections. Kemp going into Georgia is not going to be beloved by the low propensity voters that Trump needed to win. And even though Ossoff is not particularly popular, I would not be surprised if Ossoff actually beats Kemp. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, if the national environment's like R+2, R+3, then Kemp maybe like it maybe ekes out a win. But I don't think it's going to be a, 5-point win or more. It's not. If Kemp does win, it'll be like a 2-point win. If at best, a 2-point win in a midterm environment. North Carolina seems to be, it was close in 2020. Tillis did win it by under, a little bit under there. Technically, Georgia is under 2 points, so it is tilt technically. But North Carolina is actually like a 2.1 percentage point win on here. The seat's been trending Republican, so it looks like Tillis is still comfortable in North Carolina right now. He definitely is vulnerable. If Stein does run and the national environment's a little bit bluer, it could flip. But as of right now, I don't see that happening. And if you look at Michigan, the seat's actually like a 4.5-point race as of right now, which is really interesting. It's like a 4.5-point race for the Republican. The seat's been trending ridiculously Republican for the past like 20 years. It was like a D plus 20 something seat like 12, 18 years ago, and it shifted all the way down to like a 2-point race for Peters here. So not a great look in the state whatsoever. And you see in Michigan that it's not exactly great, for the Democrats there. Pete Buttigieg may be the candidate there. And by the looks of it, it looks like Michigan, being more Republican than Wisconsin in 2024, the trends in Detroit may possibly carry over. It's definitely possible that ends up being the case. However, for Susan Collins in Maine, it's not exactly the same. I have her losing right now by 3.5 points. Again, Donald Trump helped her win in 2020. Yes, she won by a lot of points. But it's because Donald Trump was on the ballot. If Donald Trump was not on the ballot in Maine, she could have lost that Senate race. And maybe she wouldn't have, but she definitely could have lost it. Definitely is possible. And in a midterm, when you don't have the low propensity voters needed to win certain races, I actually think that Maine's probably, that one's going to be a swing state in the Senate map. And so it looks like to me right now that this is what the Senate map looks like right now, where North Carolina holds, Texas holds, and is unexpectedly close. New Mexico, is about the same as last time. It didn't really change. It may actually, barely moves. It doesn't even move a lot. It doesn't really budge. It drops a little bit below 6 points. Maine ends up going, New Hampshire does move, left from the last one. Right from the last one, but not enough. New Jersey does, so they do move. And that is reflective of, voter registration trends. Minnesota, not so much. It kind of actually ends up voting a little bit more Dem on this hypothetical. But again, this is assuming like a D plus 2.5 generic ballot. And the Republicans are still holding the Senate, the same exact count. And that's not even talking about how the Minnesota, incumbent retired, how the New Hampshire incumbent retired. Maybe there's a shakeup and things could change. And maybe Georgia, Kemp does a little bit better. You could get up to 56 seats for Republicans. Even in a worst case scenario, the Republicans, in my opinion, still get 53. Maybe they lose Michigan in a worst case scenario, which I don't even think that's going to happen based off the trends that I'm seeing. And when your voter registration trends kick in, definitely not going to be a great sign for Democrats. And so even in like a scenario where I'm assuming, okay, the Democrats are going to win the generic ballot by 2.5, the Republicans are not even losing any seats. They don't even net lose seats. Michigan flips red, Maine flips blue. That's it. Nothing else changes. And so even then, the Republicans still hold the majority fairly comfortably, and they have opportunities to pick up seats. And if they hold Maine, even better. Because if they hold Michigan, if they flip Michigan and hold Maine, even better, because they get 54 seats. So at that point, it's like, okay, now that you have incumbents retiring in Minnesota and New Hampshire for the Democrats, and even possibly Virginia could even become a problem if Youngkin decides to run and we're going into like R+6 territory, R+7. that's when Minnesota's in trouble. That's when New Mexico would end up flipping. There's a lot of possibilities going into 2026, but I don't want people going into the year automatically thinking that it's a semi-red wave or, because Donald Trump's popular. That's not the case, because there are a lot of voters that Donald Trump won with this time that would not vote for Senate Republicans. They just wouldn't. And so if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe. If you want more content just like this, make sure to go down below and support SoCal Strategies Wisconsin poll. We are polling for the Supreme Court race on April 1st. I will be doing a fundraiser live stream for this very soon. Possibly tomorrow is when I would end up doing this stream. And so definitely check this out. It will be in the link. Will be in the description down below. Make sure to go ahead and support here. Any donations would be greatly appreciated. And so I will see you guys in the next video.